We are just over the halfway point of the season, and the end of the season is going to be here before we know it. And in this episode, we dive into some end of season projections and predictions in this episode of Locked On Hurricanes.
Your Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, Caniacs. I'm your host, Jared Ellis, and you're listening to Locked On Hurricanes on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And as always, thank you for making Locked On Hurricanes your first listen of the day. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Now, the we are over halfway through with the season now, and the end of the season is going to be here before we know it, folks. It's crazy just how long or how fast this season has flown by. It's already the end of February. Trade deadline's going to be here before we know it. Then the playoffs, and then before we know it, the Stanley Cup final. Who's going to be playing in that? Not a clue. Not a freaking clue. But I do want to dive into some end of season projections and some more predictions for the end of the year. And we're not gonna go through everyone on the Hurricanes roster because yeah, we'd be here forever. We'd be here for like the rest of the day. But just some key names going through here. Sebastian Aho, we're going to start off with him currently um, leading the points right now with leading the team in points right now with 61 points, 22 goals, 39 assists. And into season projections, obviously you can find all of that stuff for whatever player you're looking on for over on ESPN's website. So that's where all the projections are coming from. Currently sitting at projected 85 points on the season, 31 goals, 54 assists. I think that's kind of fair. Honestly, maybe a couple more goals, couple more assists. Maybe he breaks that 90-point mark. But for the most part, yeah, I kind of feel that's on par for Sebastian Aho of kind of where he's going to finish. Maybe a little bit higher in his totals, but for the most part, honestly, I think that's kind of right around where he's going to be. Um, I don't think he's going to crack 100 points or anything like that. I would obviously love for that to happen. I remember at the New Year, someone had that in one of their predictions as well of him hitting 100 points. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. Judging by his projected finish, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. But I think with Sebastian Aho, I don't see that fitting in for him. I think he would have needed to been on a faster pace, kind of like what we were seeing. Gosh, what was that? I believe in January. That connection we were seeing from him and Svetch, like when the new year first started, where they were just like putting up ridiculous point totals. If that had continued for a bit longer, then yeah, I could see that. But at this point, I don't know if he hits that 100-point mark. I think maybe he gets to 90, 91, 92, but that 85 total, I think that's fair, honestly. Yeah, again, maybe a couple more goals, couple more assists. But for the most part, honestly, I kind of see him finishing right around there, to be completely honest. Seth Jarvis is one I definitely think he's going to finish higher than his projections. Currently sitting at number 2 on the team in points, 47 points. Obviously, big gap between 1 and 2 there between him and Aho, of course. Again, 47 points. 18 goals, 29 assists. Projected finish is supposed to be 25 goals, 40 assists, and 65 points. I really think that could be higher. Goal wise, maybe a couple more. I think he gets close to that 30 goal mark. I think maybe he gets like 27, 28. Um, Maybe he does hit 30. I don't know. I think kind of 27, 28 is probably right around where he'll finish. Um, I really do think there's a strong chance he could hit 70 points with how good he has been playing. As of late, he's constantly having multi assist nights and whatnot. So I think that is a very strong possibility that Seth Jarvis hits the 70-point mark this season. I really, really do. He has played really good hockey for the Hurricanes, not just offensively. He's all over the place for them. Um, and go back to that game against Minnesota the other night, how right at the end of the game, yeah, he was working his freaking butt off to clear that puck and secure the Hurricanes the win. And he absolutely did. And he has played fantastic for the Hurricanes this year. Again, it's a contract year for him. He's a pending RFA. So he is really earning himself a big payday come off season time. And obviously, the Hurricanes are not going to let him go. Of course, he's definitely going to be sticking around with the Hurricanes long term. That is definitely my prediction there for him. They're going to lock up Seth Jarvis long term this season. Or this off season, excuse me. I really would honestly be surprised if again, he isn't restricted free agent, so it's a bit different, yeah, than or not a bit different, it's a lot different than unrestricted free agents. But it wouldn't surprise me if they get an extension done for him even before, it would be time to do it. Um, so that really wouldn't surprise me at all. He's gonna be locked up long term for sure. Um, and he's definitely going to beat his projection totals. I'm very confident in saying that. Marty Natchez, he's an interesting one. He is currently at 42 points on the season, 18 goals, 24 assists, projected to finish at 58 points, 25 goals, 33 assists. I think, maybe he could hit 60. He definitely has not had um the same season he did last year for sure. He's number 3 on the team in points behind, of course, Jarvis and Aho. But you look at what he did last year. Last year he had 71 points. He had a really crazy good season last year. And definitely has taken a bit of a step back this year. So, it's interesting with him. He still has, I believe, another year left on that deal, I think. I think it was a 2-year deal that he signed. Um, Obviously played all 82 games last season, of course. But yeah, this season he's definitely taken a bit of a step back. Hasn't been as good as he was the year prior. But again, he still has been really good. He has turned it around along with, the entire Hurricanes team of turning it around this season. But yeah, he's an interesting one, honestly. Currently projected, I think I said it, 25 goals, 33 assists, 58 points. Uh, he's an interesting one. I think, yeah, he'll continue to put it together. I definitely think he'll beat his projected total, maybe not by much though. Maybe is at like 60 points or something like that. Um, Again, things could obviously go crazy. Yeah, he could, just turn it on, go absolutely nuts. And the remaining bit of the season. So that'll be interesting to see what he does. He's honestly kind of the hardest one to place really for me of like, what is he going to do? Is he going to beat his projections? Is he going to meet them? Is he going to fall short? That's a really interesting one for me. I think that he's kind of a coin flip. I think, there is a potential for him to, totally beat his projections, or, he's kind of just going to meet him. And that's gonna be what it's gonna be with Natchez. I know there had been some talk, very minor talk about him potentially getting traded at the deadline too. I don't necessarily know if I see that, especially if they continue to see him as a long-term piece. So yeah, that's interesting. Uh, how many years does he have left on his deal? I think he may have one left on his deal. Good old cap friendly folks. So yeah, actually after the end of this season, he will be a restricted free agent. So it's going to be a very interesting off season for him, in terms of what things are going to look like for him. Again, restricted free agent. Yeah, it's going to be interesting what happens there. He had his last deal was that 2 year, 6 million. Uh, I could see him getting a little bit more this season or this off season should they re-sign him. Again, he is of course that pending RFA. We don't know what those talks have been like. So, is there some truth to those trade rumors? I don't know. We'll talk more about trade stuff in a later episode. But if the Hurricanes are looking to make a splash this year at the deadline, you got to give up good to get good. I don't know. Maybe Natchez is a guy that's in there in the trade, on the trade block for the Hurricanes. Not necessarily because, oh, they want to get rid of him or anything like that. But like, no, okay, we need to make this upgrade. And again, you got to give good to get good. So we'll see what happens there. Again, he is a pending RFA. So it's not like, oh, he has, another 3 years left or anything like that. It's not the case. So we'll just have to wait and see with him. Again, I think it's a coin flip on his projection totals. Again, does he get traded? Does he not? I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. And we'll continue to dive into end of season projections and predictions right after this quick break, folks. Now, folks, we've talked a lot about game time here on the show over uh, the years, and we will continue to do so because you shouldn't have to worry when you buy tickets to your next big event. Game time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all these sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you with killer last minute deals, all in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee. Game time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. I've said before how me and a friend of mine, we use Game Time to get our tickets to go to AEW Collision in Greensboro a while back, and we loved being able to see our seats there on the app, going around Greensboro Coliseum, trying to figure out where we wanted to sit. We got great spot there in the lower bowl, looking directly at the ring, directly at the ramp, all of that. And then I also, for a recent concert that me and a friend of mine went to, she needed to get her ticket, and I suggested Game Time, and that is totally what she used because Game Time does have those lowest prices because she got her ticket like the day before, and Game Time had her covered there as well. And those last minute tickets, folks, they're not lying. Game Time really has you covered there, and they have deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it starts. It is the place to find last minute seats. I say it all the time. You don't necessarily know if you're always going to be able to go to an event. All of a sudden, your schedule frees up, much like my friend did. Game Time has you covered, folks. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code Locked On. That's LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, the lowest price guaranteed. Now, again, Natchez, he's one that I'm kind of on the fence with of is he going to beat his projected totals? Is he going to go over him? That's an interesting one, honestly. But Jordan Martinick's definitely one I think he's going to beat his projected totals. Now, if he had not had the start to 2024 that he has had, maybe I feel a bit differently. But he has really played well in the new year. And really see that continuing, honestly. Just keep doing what they're doing. Honestly, it's working. Why would you change it? Um, and currently sitting at 10 goals, 12 assists, 22 total points. Currently projected to finish at 14 goals, 17 assists, 31 points. I definitely think he beats that. I don't think he breaks 40 points again. Um, but I definitely think, he'll probably, notch up, a few goals. I think maybe he hits, 15, 16 goals, probably hits that 20 assist mark. So definitely with Martinook, I definitely think he's going to beat his totals, especially if they keep that line of him, Seth Jarvis, and Jordan Stahl together. If they keep that line together, oh, he's 100% beating those. Especially when it comes to the assists and the way Seth Jarvis has been playing. That's totally gonna get beat. I really don't have a whole lot more to say on that one, to be completely honest, because again, he has been it's easy there. Like he's totally gonna beat his projected totals, barring something catastrophic happening or anything like that. Like the Hurricanes just collapse. That's not gonna happen. Andrei Svechnikov is an interesting one. He's obviously missed quite a bit of time due to injury. He's only played, as of recording, uh, 38 games played this year, 13 goals, 22 assists, 35 points. Um, Projected to finish at 58 games played, 18 goals, 31 assists, 49 points. I definitely think he beats his for sure. He's totally going to hit that 20 goal mark for sure. He's going to cross 50 points. I think he could be in like the 55 point range or something. Kind of where, honestly, I think where Svetch will finish is where Natchez is projected to finish. That's kind of where I see Svetch going this year. I think his actual finish is going to be Natchez's projected finish. Obviously, had he not been hurt, a lot of this stuff would be higher for him. He could totally be in that conversation with Aho, in that number one spot on the team for points and also goals and assists. He could totally be up there had he been healthy this year, but he hadn't been. But yeah, I totally think honestly what he's going to finish at is going to be what Natchez is projected. I think he's going to be in that ballpark of where he'll finish the season. Again, had he been healthy, totally be higher. But it is what it is there. Another one I don't have him wrote down, but one that's going to be very interesting is that Jesperi Kotkaniemi. He has not had the best season this year. He's really struggled this year, and there's obviously been trade talk about him. Do they just want to go ahead and cut ties with him? And I don't know. I really don't know on that one. He currently sits at 10 goals, 10 assists, 20 points. I know folks, I don't put a lot of stock into it with the plus minus, but a -9 on the season as well. So Yeah, he just ended, like, his goal drought, a few games ago. He had went 20, games or so without a goal, or he went a long time without a goal, and he was struggling. Um, he projected to finish at, with all 82 games played, 14 goals, 14 assists, 28 points, and again, if you, like that stat, minus 13. That's where he's projected to finish. Uh, honestly, I I don't know, really. Honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if that's pretty on par or he falls short of those projections. I kind of think that's the way it's going to go. I do not see him breaking that 30-point mark this season. I want to be wrong. I really want to be wrong here, but I don't see him breaking 30 points this year. I just don't. Yeah, maybe he does. If he does, it's just barely. But he has not really shown a whole lot this year. Obviously, now he's gotten moved down as well. Yeah, he's not that second line center anymore. He's gotten moved down to the fourth line, so he's not going to have as much ice time as he would have had he stayed on the second line. So that's not great for him. And maybe he is able to turn it around this season. I would love for him to do that, but I do not have really high hopes for him remaining of the season. That's probably why there has been talk about, do the Hurricanes go out and get a second line center at the deadline? Do they do that? Because Kotkaniemi has not had a good year. I really think, should he stick around? Should they not trade him at the deadline or during the offseason? I really think next year's going to be a make or break year for him because he already signed that real long term deal. Yeah, they see, or they saw potential in him long term to be that number two center for them, but it is not shaken out great for him this year. Maybe having Teuvo Teravainen there on his wing will help, get things going, get some confidence back in him. But man, it's been a rough year for him this year. And I hope it's just kind of a one-off thing, much like Natchez. Yeah, he's also hasn't lived up to expectations this year either. So, you look at these guys, it's going to be interesting second half or continuing this second half of the season, playoffs, and into the offseason. Natchez, especially with him being that pending RFA, with Kokanyemi, he's at least locked up long term. So he doesn't necessarily have to worry about that. It's just trading with him. So we'll see what happens, with Kokanyemi and Natchez. Kokanyemi especially, again, has not had a great year, has really kind of been a bit of a non-factor quite often. You just kind of forget he's there, and that's not good. That is not good, folks. But moving over to the defensive side of things, Brent Burns is obviously leading the team in points by a defenseman right now. Currently sitting at 9 goals, 22 assists, 31 points. Um, Projected to finish at 13 goals, 31 assists, 43 points. I With him, it's interesting. I kind of he's gonna beat it, but I don't think he's gonna have like another record-setting season or anything like that for the Hurricanes. Last year he did set that record for them, having that 61-point season. Last year he had 18 goals, 43 assists. Um, I Yeah, he definitely is. I think he'll hit the 50-point mark, for sure. I definitely think he'll do that. But yeah, he's definitely not gonna hit that 60-point mark this season. He'll definitely hit 50 though. I really think Brent Burns, he'll hit 50 points for sure. yeah, he's gotten things rolling, and yeah, kinda in this second half of the well, like, him along with a lot of other guys ever since, mid-December, really turning things around. Him, yeah, kind of around Christmas, really turning things around. I really think he can again, he'll hit that 50-point mark, for sure. I don't think that'll be too much of an issue for him. He's he's had things going, and I don't see any reason why he wouldn't, honestly. Yeah, maybe he hits the 20 goal mark. Maybe, maybe. Honestly, I probably gonna say no on that. Honestly, yeah, he hasn't. Yeah, he's at 9 goals on the year, 22 assists, again, 31 points. Uh, maybe he hits that 30 or that 20 goal mark, but at this point in the season, I just feel like that may be a bit of a tall ask for him, especially at this stage in his career. Obviously, he's shown he can still go, but he hasn't hit 20 goal mark since 2016, 2017, when he had 29 goals there in San Jose. Closest he came was last year at 18 goals. Obviously, you had some, COVID shortened seasons there. So didn't necessarily, wasn't necessarily able to have that pace that he normally would have. But he hasn't hit the 20 goal mark in several years. Um, so we'll see what happens there. Um, but I definitely think he'll hit the 50-point mark for sure. Definitely confident in saying that. Um, but you know, there is still one more person I want to talk about, and we will do that right after this quick break, folks. Now, folks, we are over halfway done with the NHL season. And regardless of where the Hurricanes are in the current standings, I want to remind you that you could win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL network. Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports and especially daily fantasy hockey because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. All you have to do is pick whether studs like Aho, Natchez, Svechnikov, Kochetkov, or anyone else across the league will record more or less of their sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus minuses, and more in a given game. To win 100 times bet on sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You heard me, Canes fans. You can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention and nail your picks so you can start winning big. Use promo code Locked On NHL and you'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code Locked On NHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. Now, the last person I want to talk about today is that of Pyotr Kochetkov. Um, he has definitely emerged kind of as the Hurricanes' default number one goaltender this season, with Freddie Anderson being out, Antti Ranta being out, and he's kind of just been the guy this year, whether they planned for that to be the case or not. Obviously, they didn't plan for that to be the case. But, you know, they didn't necessarily plan for him to be the number one guy this soon, is what I should say there. Um, and yeah, he's had a good season. He's definitely turned it around since December. But again, that can really be said for everyone on this roster. Of everyone turned it around come after December, after kind of, I believe it was December 12th is when they had that meeting. That's kind of when everyone turned it around. So, he's a guy I definitely think he's still going to finish the season the Hurricanes' number one goalie. I think he's still going to be the number one guy for the Hurricanes because he's Spencer Martin isn't going to take that away from Kochetkov, barring again some weird collapse. That's not going to happen there. And honestly, even if that were to happen, I would think they would, especially if it were to happen soon, they would make a trade. And you never know, they still may. But saying they don't make a trade for a goalie, I think Kochetkov finishes the season the Hurricanes' number one goalie. Again, Spencer Martin isn't going to take it from Antti Raanta when he comes back. I think, he may get a decent amount of starts, but he's kind of shown he can't handle the load of a number one goalie at this stage in his career. It's not that he can't play; it's just it's the healthy side of things. He stays. It's just the injuries are piling up, um, and I think he's definitely best served as a number two now. Because of his age, Father Time catching up to Father Finn, you really saw that this year when he was playing. Age is catching up to him for sure. Um, and when he would come back, he's definitely the number two or number three guy behind Kochetkov and Martin. Honestly, maybe he does come back in the number two role and then Martin gets bumped to the number three. I don't know if that's a conversation for another day. But if Freddie Anderson comes back this year, I think they're really going to try to limit what he's doing just for his health. And then again, that's even if he comes back this year. Yes, he has been cleared to practice and skate and all that, and he has been, but he'd been out for so long. And then with it being a blood clotting issue, I don't want to chance that. Like, again, I've said many times, if he needs to sit out the remainder of the season, let him sit and let him get as healthy as he can possibly get. Because much like Ronta, he's on the wrong side of 30. He has injury history. Yeah, being out for so long may do him some good to nagging injuries. Not saying it is, but say his knees are were giving him some issues, and he really just needed to stop and rest. And yeah being forced to be sidelined with this issue may have been able to help him, with some of his other injuries that have mounted up over the course of his career. Again, not saying his knees are bad or anything like that, or shoulder or back or whatever, whatever it may be. There, give him some extra time to heal up on that stuff too. So, come next season, he comes back. He'll be that much healthier. Like his blood clotting issue is going to be taken care of. Any other sort of injuries he may have had, those have had time to heal. So that's going to be important there. But I do think, barring a trade for a goalie, Kochetkov is going to finish the Hurricanes season as the number one goalie. He's currently sitting at a 16-10-3 record as the Hurricanes starter. This year at a 2.35 goals allowed, a 0.911 save percentage, projected to finish at 22, 14, and 4, 3.26 goals allowed, and still a 0.911 save percentage. Honestly, I kind of feel like that's kind of going to be on par for Kochetkov. Honestly, maybe the goals allowed, is a little bit lower, save percentage a little bit higher, but for the most part, honestly, I kind of see that staying the same for the most part. Because not because he has been bad. I do want to state that it's not that he's bad. He's not. He's really turned it around in the second half of the season. Again, much like everyone, really turned it around because everyone's stats were bad prior to December. So, you get all that, but you're also factoring in to all, those bad games, that he was having, at the start of the year. Those are getting factored in. Those are hurting those totals much like everyone else. Had Aho, been a bit better in the first start of the season, or maybe he hits that 100-point mark. Maybe. Same with Natchez. Again, you could say that for a lot of guys on the team. Had the start to the season been better, maybe their projected totals are going to be better. Maybe what they're actually going to finish with is going to be better. Again, you also see it with the Hurricanes' power play and penalty kill. It was so bad for a while. They've since December, yeah, they've been number one, number two, but in the full season totals, I want to say they're still ranked both number three and power play and penalty kill. So you are factoring that start to the season there as well. But yeah, I kind of feel like Kochetkov, for the most part, is going to be there, kind of right around his projected finishes. Maybe give or take a little bit, but think he's kind of going to be on par there again. Should he stay the Hurricane starter? If they make a trade for a goalie, that can totally change. Totally could, but we'll just have to wait and see on that. So make sure you are following along on the socials at LO_Hurricanes, myself at Jared Ellis _96. Go subscribe on YouTube, leave a comment down there as well as far as what you think your favorite Hurricanes player is going to finish the season as, and what your predictions for the end of the season for them are. Let me know. And as always, folks, let's go Canes.